Hello and welcome to another episode of Present Practice with Poonam and Parker. Hey Poonam.
Good morning, Parker. Nice to see you.
And you as well. So today's topic is karma, and we'll begin with an answer that Eckhart gave to a questioner, and watch his video, and then maybe something will emerge from one of us from that video. But let's watch the video together. We'll start there.
Thank you, Parker.
Now, of course, everybody is born into a certain external environment and also is born with certain predispositions. They may be partly genetic, they may be other things, that a person is born with certain patterns, in other words. We don't need to examine where they come from, but just to see the fact that the human being is first of all born into a certain environment, which may be violent, or it may be relatively peaceful, and the person is born with inner patterns. You inherit certain, even pain body is partly inherited. Some babies cry a lot. They have a relatively heavy pain body already in this world. It doesn't mean they're spiritually less advanced. The opposite may be the case. There's no knowing. Other babies are relatively peaceful. And so there's a whole set of conditioning that happens. You come into the environment with certain predispositions, then the environment conditions you further, and in all that there's no choice involved. It's just influences. And so you find yourself in this world with certain unconscious patterns that have become the conditioning of who the person is, the unconscious conditioning. So karma, as I see it, is the unconscious conditioning that runs your life. And that still applies to many humans. And karma is partly collective, you've been born into it, and partly personal, they come together. So really you can only understand karma not as an abstract subject external to yourself, because then you get into belief systems and philosophy. We're not going that way. You can only understand karma by observing yourself and by observing, and then you'll know many other things. But you need to, really, if you want to understand karma, you need to look at yourself. And so I began to understand what karma is when there was something arose that was not part of karma at all. And really here we come to the key. The arising of consciousness or presence or a spiritual awakening is not part of karma. It is another dimension that breaks into the karmic realm. So you do not become awakened by accumulating, as they sometimes say in the East, good karma. That's fine on this level. You can make the walls or the furniture in your prison a little bit more comfortable. But there is something totally from beyond karma that can come into your life at any point within the wheel of karma and rebirth. Rebirth is, of course, part of karma. The deeper meaning of rebirth is identification with form. We don't need to even believe in transmigration or whatever. You can look at rebirth in your own life. Every time you identify with a thought that arises, which is form, you are born into that thought. Because you identify, your sense of self is in it. That's karma. You're reborn. Karma then is unconscious identification with these patterns that you have inherited, the conditioned. Complete identification of consciousness with the conditioned patterns. So consciousness is dreaming, one could say. This is why we use the word awakening in many spiritual traditions. Consciousness is awakening. Consciousness is in a dreamlike state when you're identified with the unconscious patterns. And then you are condemned to rebirth. In fact, many times every day, you are reborn into a reaction, an emotional, mental reaction. No presence at all, just rebirth into some form. Or you're reborn into thoughts that arise, and you completely believe in every thought. And then you act from those thoughts and emotions, and the action creates further reactions, and the actions confirm to you that you were right. If you have certain mind patterns about, for example, that other people are basically dishonest, just one example of people. People are so dishonest, they're all trying to get something from me. That tends to confirm itself in your life experience. You can try it out, or you may have experienced it before you became more conscious. That's habitual thought patterns that you're identified with, and that is karma, creates in the external confirmation that it is correct. So if you think the world is full of evil people, you will meet many evil people. And in other words, unconscious people. And even people who are on the break or who are halfway between conscious and unconscious, when you come together with them, your belief will pull them into unconsciousnness. And that's karma. So karma is the complete absence of conscious presence, and so it's automatic. It plays itself out. And time does not free you of karma. That is a...
So I think our intention or the reason why we played this video was we had already talked about addictions, right? And in the addictions video, we said there's a compulsion, there's a tendency of the person. Like I had brought up the fact if a person is born in a Native American family, even the baby is already born with memory of addiction to alcohol, right? And that is the karmic pattern. So a lot of people have this colloquial, what I wanted to correct, they have this colloquial way of saying, oh, bad karma, good karma, and you'll get bad karma. And that is not exactly what karma is, right? Karma is the patterns that are written, and that's the part that Sadhguru says, right? There's memory everywhere. Our cells of our body has memory, our mental body has memory, then our pranic body has memory, and that memory is the karmic memory. How does our body remember? Like I've seen people from South India, they love South Indian food. If they move to North India, they would say, ew, what is this? What is this curry with gravy? And they would be miserable. The moment you move them back to the South, right? They'll be thrilled to no end in eating their syrupy, whatever they're eating, right? Because it's prepared in, so that's the tongue. The tongue has memory, right? So just imagine how much our body, how much do we say, I like cotton clothes? The body loves that memory, right? Oh, I love soft, somebody likes a soft recliner. What does the body, how much memory does the body hold? Like, you know, our nose, maybe my ears are like my father's. How did the cells of my ears remember whenever I was a seed in my mother's womb? How did it remember to make the ears, make it long? And I've been teased all my life about my ears, that they're like elephant ears, but they're exactly like my father's ears, right? So this karmic memory written. The part I wanted to bring up is where he says that another dimension needs to arise for us to be able to observe these patterns that we have. And the more we dissolve the patterns, the more we are not co-creating or getting back into that wheel of acting and reacting, right? So I see on Facebook and in talking to people, coworkers and everything, that the same person is recreating the same type of incidents over and over again, right? And I wanted to bring up something. This pattern is not even something that we have consciously taken over. The example I wanted to give is my son's grandfather is a warrior. Like if he were to go to the movies, he'll go, please make sure you call me when you get there. Please make sure when you leave, call me, right? I see that pattern in my son. He'll say, mommy, when he was 16, 17 years old, and I would go to pick him up at school, he would go, mommy, you have to be there at 4:20, not at 4:25, not at 4:30. And he'll repeat it like 5 times in the morning while I'm dropping him off at school, right? So I can see that that pattern came from his grandfather, and he has not spent a whole lot of time with his grandfather. It's not like his grandfather said, you have to start worrying, right? The other thing I see in him is, what else he is very uncomfortable living with people, like going to another person's house, like even if it's his uncle's house, his home is the most comfortable to him. And I know my ex-husband had that pattern. Like if he were to come over to my mom's house, he would be like very, yeah, he would be cordial and talk to people. But you know, like I know from his face and body language that he's uncomfortable. My son is the same way. The moment he comes back to his home, which is my home, he's like totally all the cells of the body relax, right? So those are the patterns that we have to observe if we want to dissolve the pain and suffering. The reason, the whole intention behind this video was, this is what Eckhart is talking, is user presence practice. Yeah, you may not be awakened, but use a presence practice to develop your breath work, your inhabit your body, get into presence, and then observe your pattern. See why we are co-creating. What is the limiting belief that is co-creating whatever pain and suffering we are going through? Because not only am I going through the pain and suffering, I'm causing pain and suffering to all those that are around me, right? If I have a terminal illness, I'm not the only one that's suffering. Every relative of mine, every friend of mine, every coworker of mine is suffering that terminal illness, right? Because they are feeling for me, they're having compassion, right? That's what human behavior is very bonding and compassionate. So they are going to feel it too. They are going to experience the pain too. So you have some questions or something to say, Parker? I cannot hear you, Parker.
Thank you. I
Thank you.
muted my computer.
Thank you.
So if can a person help transmute another person that is they're coming in contact with, that is fully in an active experience, a pain body experience, karmic pain body experience? What can a person do from a compassionate place to support the patterns, that these unconscious patterns, which are karma? Do I have that correct?
The identifications that we have, and we move with those compulsions and tendencies. Like if our body and mind were let go, just imagine an energy, right? Like a whiff of how does a smoke move? That's how compulsions and tendencies move,
Yes.
right? We would
Yes.
be like, okay, we dropped the alcohol addiction, now we are addicted to smoking. We dropped the smoking, now we're addicted to food. So it just moves somewhere in.
Yes.
The only thing we can do is pull them out of their unconsciousness and let them experience their presence. Every human has to bring that, they have to make the effort to bring that transcendent dimension. So you remember we went to Eckhart's talk, right? And we can feel, when we are with him, we can experience his presence. So there is an anchoring at that point in time. Once we move away from him, it's like you're back into the collective, the magnetic quality of the collective field of unconsciousness, because everybody's everybody's reactivity is going out into the ether, right? This is vibrational electromagnetic energy. So there is a pull. It'll pull us back into unconsciousness. So yeah, we may sit with this person while they are with us for 20 minutes or an hour or two. Yeah, they are anchored. But the moment they get up and they interact with a few more people that have a heavy pain body, it'll come back into them. So their only power is to work on their own presence, like do the 2 hours of meditation. Yesterday I did presence practice with Kim, right? I mean, inhabiting the body is so it seems like he's giving a really inconsequential advice that, hey, inner body is a portal, right? It may seem inconsequential, but that is what anchors the momentum of thoughts, which is the compulsion. Once the thoughts recede, then the awareness comes through, and the awareness is then able to see, okay, I have this pattern, this limiting belief, right? And that limiting belief may be co-creating more and more of the same. Like if I was reading this book, The Nature of Personal Reality by Jane Roberts, and the channel Teachings of Seth. And in there, Seth says that a limiting belief can be, oh, spiritual people need to be poor, right? So what are we manifesting? More and more poverty for ourselves, right? Um, that we look at wealthy people and we say, oh, people should not have this much. Oprah shouldn't. I mean, I see so many people jealous of Oprah's wealth, right? That she has billions of dollars. Why does she have billions of dollars? It's like, no, welcome that abundance. If that abundance, Eckhart, during the conscious manifestation course, says, that's what Abraham Hicks says, there's infinite abundance. There is no limit to the abundance that is available to all the humans, to all of creation. It is our mind that creates the limit, that says, oh, I cannot do this. Oh, I can apply for that job, or whatever the negative voice in the head, right? So
So the answer would be to turn up, to make sure that the flame is high in our bodies when we move around in the world, because as a great rebirth and awareness and in consciousness and breaking, like this you were said, it was like a smoke or a wave coming through. We slice through that with our presence. And so when we're in the world, there are many perspectives and no perspectives. There's the absolute relative and relative realities always at play. And so when we're present and we can experience whatever's coming up, then we will experience our unconscious patterns. And in the light of that presence, without the story, it transmutes. Because what the story does is feeds the emotions, and now the emotions are feeding our minds. And now we're still stuck in the unconscious pattern. But just the simplicity of sitting in the present moment can burn out karma. Is that really?
And look at our experience of this present moment, right? Why is it being created? Like for me, it has been weight for the past 2-3 years. I've been trying to lose weight and I cannot. And for the past 2-3 months, I've spun off, in my meditation, what is the answer? Why am I not able to lose weight? And so I looked at this, the nature of personal reality, and he talks about the limiting belief for an overweight person. If, when we are children, like we get untoward attention from men. So some girls can like start putting on weight it's like a shield, right? Let me look unattractive so I don't get this attention that I don't want, right? But that's not the case at 50 something. I don't have that people are going to pay attention to my body. I said that, check that out. What's the second one? He says, then the other thing is if you are pushed around as a child, like if you're little and you were pushed around, teased and all that, that's not the case. Nobody's pushing me around right now. Then I looked at Louise L. Hay's affirmation on overweight, and she says it's about security. And I remember in 2012, I went through a financial loss. And my ex-husband has always told me, you don't know how to manage money, right? So guess what the weight is about? Security.
Beautiful, really beautiful insight. And that, I'm so grateful that you're doing this work with me, Poonam. Really beautiful insight. And so when you heard that, it felt very true for you.
Oh my God. I was like, it was, and the moment I heard that, I knew that, the compulsion to eat sugar immediately went off. Like there's candy. My son eats Reese's peanut butter cups, M&Ms. They're always, he goes to Target and buys big bags of it. It's always there in the pantry. I have not eaten one single, and it's been 3-4 months. I have not eaten a single piece. There's candy from Halloween at work. I've not eaten a single piece. I eat very little sugar after that. So that means something is curing, right? The compulsion. So I'm going to learn, like, if I leave it to the intelligence of the body will tell me, don't eat this, don't eat this.
What's really beautiful about this example that you've given, Poonam, is that you didn't move into any stories about how you would be perceived in the world. It wasn't really about anything other than the health and well-being of your body and the deep I don't know, right? To sit deeply with I don't know. And from that emerges a very simple question that you asked. And what a wonderful example that you've given to us today. Thank you.
And I wanted to wrap it up with one of the things that Eckhart, we had one video where he says his mom had this tendency when she was 80 years old. She was very identified with her looks. And so when she was 80 years old, she would say, what should I do? What should I do? What should I do? Right? Yeah. And Eckhart says, there's a pattern in the Western civilization of doing. I even make it more broader. It's not a Western civilization pattern. My mom used to have that pattern. Always the doing, right? Always she had to constantly be moving. And some of it was in me until now with meditation, I've slowed down considerably. But It's always is, okay, I need to cook, I need to clean, I need to do the dishes. And if she sat down for 5 minutes, the next thing to do, right? What is, let me prepare some vegetables for tomorrow's cooking. It's constant doing, right? And with her illness, constant, no, just be, and get out of your mind on the constant activity of the mind, or it'll be the chewing mind, right? If she's not doing this, she's like constantly thinking about, oh, did the person deliver the gas? Did the milk get delivered? Did so and so pay the bill? I'm like, oh my God, you're 70 something years old. You can just like sit back and let go, right? Let my sister-in-law and my brother take care. You just have to eat. And if I were 70 and I had somebody that was taking care of me, I would just eat, meditate, like eat a little bit to sustain my body and meditate. I would just like be in the joy, blissed out in being. Don't ask me to do anything.
That's wonderful.
Right.
In my deep unconsciousness early in life, had one of my best, I sharpened some very unconscious tools, and multitasking was one of them. Just doing all these things all at one time. And some of the subtle beauty of spending time in conscious awareness is how beautiful doing one thing at a time, and not having a goal to get anywhere, complete anything, just doing what we're doing. And the softness, I feel much softer, less of a heavy hand as I do things. And what gifts that we let go of these things that I prize so much, like multitasking and a sharp tongue, to relinquish these things and again and again, and burn up all the unconsciousness, and let's be gentle as we go, and when we see these things, right?
Wishing everybody gets the ability to be their presence and observe observe our patterns and see why we are repeatedly experiencing the same thing over and over again. The answer is right in front of us.
It is. And I don't want to say be gentle. I want to correct that. I want to say let the gentleness that's there with whatever we're feeling in our body, whatever if there's unconsciousness, a reactivity or an emotional, that we allow the gentleness to come out at the same time, and know that we're all doing our best. And in absolute terms, nothing's out of order. And if we've got to repeat things over and over again, then that is as it is too. But we can step out of the suffering. It can be painful and challenging to be alive, but suffering is optional. And so let's empty our cups and see what's there every moment.